Anthony Davis left game 5 against the Warriors in a wheelchair, and a lot of people are talking about this, and I wanted to give my 2 cents. Now, I know we don't cover basketball a ton here, but I've seen a lot of different reactions to this injury, and I want to just say what I think happened and what makes the most sense. A lot of people are calling Davis soft, or they're kind of surprised of why he would leave in an injury, or like that there's I think they're kind of going about it the wrong way. To me, I think it was genius that he leaves in a wheelchair. Let's say Anthony Davis walks off the court. No one knows how injured he is. No one knows if he has a concussion. No one knows the severity of the injury. So instead of risking your player potentially wobbling or stumbling or anything like that, because if they do that, even if they don't have a concussion, the optics are so bad that he probably would have had to have been held out for game 6. So why even risk the optics? Put him on a wheelchair, get him to the locker room, do your test, come back, say everything's cool, all good, no big deal, and then you're free and clear to play him in game 6. I can't tell you how many times I've had a wide receiver in the NFL's prop, or a running back, or a player prop, like over 3 catches or over 50 yards. He gets hit hard, the crowd goes, ooh, and then he may stumble or wobble or something going back to the sideline, and I know he's done. Just optics. I know that just because he stumbled or just because he wobbled, he's done. And then they'll take him out for precautionary reasons. Then the next day, blank player does not have a concussion. And I'm sitting there with a losing ticket wondering why he was held out. Just because he stumbled, just because of the wobble. It's actually kind of crazy that in our current climate, it is worse optically to stumble or wobble than it is to be taken out in a wheelchair. How crazy is that? People assume you're more hurt if you walk back and wobble than if you get wheelchaired back. It's crazy how our society is with this kind of stuff, but that's the situation. Now, is that what actually happened? Am I in the Lakers front office and I know for sure? No, of course not. But I think that's what happened. And if it was me, that's what I would have done. I would have said, stay down. Stay down. We will get you out of here. Don't try and walk. I mean, you know how it is, guys. If you've ever got hit, or if you've ever, doing anything, like just something dumb, you know how you can get kind of dazed for a second there, where you get hit, a flash of light, or you're kind of groggy, or you might lose your balance for a second there. It doesn't mean you immediately have a concussion. I've done things before where something's happened and I've gone to walk and I've stumbled or wobbled and I had to kind of readjust myself or get myself back together. Doesn't mean I have a concussion, doesn't mean I have a torn ACL or anything, but it probably looks bad, right? So if I was the team, this would be my move moving forward. We have to take you to the locker room, get your ass on this wheelchair. We're taking you back. That's it.
I mean, I don't know what to say. I really don't know what to say about this one, because obviously if he is feeling that type of way that he was in a wheelchair, is it that serious? And as Wendy pointed out, if you go into concussion protocol, I mean, that's in jeopardy of game 6 and game 7.
Yep.
And there's no way the Lakers beat the Golden State Warriors without their best player on the floor.
Yeah.
I'm your overly competitive.
Oh my God. Right into an ad. I mean, ESPN, what's going on? What's happening? Why am I watching mayhem right here? I'm trying to do a reaction. I'm trying to be the voice of the voices. I'm trying to teach the people, and I've got to watch mayhem. How many mayhem's commercials are there going to be?
Are in a place right now where today, there's not a game day, is the most important day of their season. Yeah. Because how he wakes up today, how he feels today, will decide whether or not they're going to win the series and continue this magical run that they're on. Everything now stems on how Anthony Davis feels when he wakes up today and then he checks in again with doctors, because these concussions, as we've learned, and we've seen this a lot in the NFL season as well, concussions aren't necessarily immediate. Concussions can be the next day or the next 2 days, how you feel. And the minute he has symptoms, they have to shut him down.
Yeah, I think, look, I think as bad as it is to say, but in today's climate, it is better to handle this kind of stuff behind closed doors. It just is. With any kind of injury, with any kind of precaution, with any of that stuff, it's better to do it behind closed doors. It's better to keep it out of the public eye, to keep it away. And you could also say, like, oh, well, maybe some gamesmanship that, now the Warriors might not think Davis is 100%. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking strictly of evaluating your players, letting your medical staff do what they have to do, and you making the right decision with zero expectations from the public. That's just the way I would do it moving forward if I was any team.
Yeah, and again, he walked out of the arena on his own power, but still, today's going to be a critical day. Now, Jay, well, we've been having this discussion about whether or not AD should have been pulled earlier in the game once it started getting out of hand, especially, as Alan said, late in the third, they were down 16. What's your sense of that?
I mean, I'm okay with him playing. That was such a random coincidence. I mean, if watching it on replay, like last night and this morning, he didn't get hit with the elbow. Mm-hmm. It didn't go to his tempo. It was the forearm that kind of grazed in, like right here in the cheek area. Like that's kind of like, I'm still shocked that we're at this place.
So you're surprised by the results.
Yes, I am, because like it's like I've been hit by Shaq before. Like I've seen like a real, and like I'm not minimizing it. Yeah. I'm just like I didn't expect that type of reaction off that graze. Now, Kevon.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. You know, like looking at it, I can definitely see where it's like, you know, not that big of a deal, not that bad. You know, I could definitely see where watching the video, you're thinking, it is what it is. But in the heat of the moment, in the live situation, I could also see where getting hit, you may not know what happened, or you may think it's worse than it is, or you may, you know, there's all kind of stuff happening. So it's hard to have the 2020, you know, hindsight is 2020, and saying like, how were you this injured off of that hit? I understand that. I've seen hits that didn't look that bad end up fracturing people's back. You know, I know Neymar in the World Cup probably 8 years ago now, he took a knee to the back and it looked whatever. If y'all can look it up, it didn't seem like that big of a deal. I think it fractured his back and he was out for the entire rest of the World Cup. This was in Brazil. So sometimes things happen that you looking at on video and you're like, that doesn't look like that was that big of a deal. And you just never know what's actually happening. So it's hard to be like, just because something looks a certain way, the reaction shouldn't have been a certain way.
He's a bigger guy. I get it. But I've seen AD take hard hits before, and maybe it's just a matter of balancing and where he's at.
Right.
Like, I'm just shocked that we're at this state right now. And in game 6, like, I am.
Well, it's also one of those things too, where like, you know, you get hit in the ear or something like that. Like just the pressure from your ear can set off your balance or make you feel wonky or make you feel like something's different. So it might not even be a situation where it was a concussion, like the impact concussions we're thinking of, but it could have been more of just a hit a certain way, a certain thing happened where your balance or your light, your whatever is off. You know, so it's just, with this kind of stuff, there's so many variables, it's impossible to be like, concussions are not just, or head injuries, I should say, are not just hard impact. There's not one version of a head injury. There's not one version of your balance going off, or you feeling a certain type of way, as Jay Will put it. Like there's a lot of factors going into it.
Is that fair to say?
Well, no. The part that got me was not necessarily him, you know, holding his head in that moment, because, you know, you've been hit in the head before. I've been hit in the head before in a game. There's sometimes you just need to, you know, get a minute.
Yourself.
Right.
But when he went to the bench and you could see, it's like he was like this. That's when right away, first of all, I thought of Greeny, who said he shouldn't even play.
Yep.
But then I'm watching him, thinking to myself, well, that must have hurt a lot more than it looked. But then you see Chris Haynes' tweet about how he was in a wheelchair. So too woozy to stand on his own. They put him in that. Was that a precaution? What was that about?
That's the thing.
So much needs to be explained.
Yeah,
because when you hear wheelchair, you think that's pretty serious, or it's Paul Pierce.
Right.
The Paul Pierce that they're talking about, a little context, is when Paul Pierce, for lack of a better term, shit himself in a game and, you know, couldn't walk because he'd had the chocolate pie in his pants, so they put him in a wheelchair and wheeled him back there so he can clean himself up. That's what he's talking about with Paul Pierce.
But see,
that scenario.
This is where, exactly, and I think that's also the thing that makes this even harder to decipher, right? Because like in Memphis, when he got hit in the shoulder, do you remember the reaction he had to his shoulder then?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Like
I can't feel my arm.
He had it. He's like, I can't feel my arm, and he held it. So, but then you see him come and he plays again, right? And it's like it's okay. So, like I don't know how to really dissect, like to the degree that is, especially seeing him walk off the court at the end
Out of the arena, yeah.
at the arena. Like he's walking, seems fine.
I mean,
I think I'm right. Obviously, I'm always right. But I feel bad for them that they're told, like, hey, y'all have to talk about this injury. But they have nothing to go off of. They have no idea what happened. They can't, like, the actual video they're forced to show doesn't look that bad. But this is kind of what I'm talking about from a front office. You would rather the ESPN do this. You would rather ESPN sit there and basically say, like, we have no idea what happened. How are we supposed to dissect this? We're confused. We're having trouble talking about it. We don't know what happened. Could be a concussion. Could be he pooped himself. You would rather ESPN do that than have them showing on loop Anthony Davis stumbling or Anthony Davis wobbling or Anthony Davis doing something else, and then them saying, well, the league should step in. He should not play. You know, he should at least miss game 6, possibly game 7. Like, you would much rather this. And you got to also think that in the locker room, they could be telling players this. They could be saying, like, hey, look, here's why we did this. Here's the situation. He's fine. Let's go get him in game 6. Let's rock and roll, baby. And then the locker room doesn't think he's soft, or the locker room isn't worried about the stuff that they're talking about on ESPN. I mean, again, I could just have made this entire thing up, and Davis could just be soft. But if the Lakers did do this, you got to think, what a move by the Lakers to handle it this way. 100%. It is another example, but in the NFL, if a player gets hit and he thinks he may have a concussion or he's wobbling or he can't stand up, it is better for him to lie on his side and roll to the sideline and get checked out than it is for him to try and walk back, just because of the pressure from the public. That's just how it is. So whether it's a wheelchair or people holding him or him rolling around,
we're going to find out a lot about this today. We're going to find out a little bit more. I would presume at least they'll know a little bit more about him. But, Jay, well, I got to ask you, can they win without him?
No.
I don't think so.
I mean,
look,
they can't.
LeBron James is so special.
Like, series is over if he doesn't play.
I mean,
exactly. The series is over if he doesn't play, which is all the more reason to keep this hush hush.
I think the series goes to heavily favor Golden State. Heavy. And I can say this as a former player. Like, these are one of the things, regardless of whether he's okay.
All right, so now we're talking about more about the series, but I just wanted to address what I thought happened with the head injury, because I've heard so many different things, and when I first saw it and heard about it and saw the reaction, I thought, this makes perfect sense to me. But then I never heard anyone saying it. All I heard was, is Davis soft? You know, they were laughing at him. They were laughing at him for having to be wheelchaired out, and I was thinking, they're really missing this. They're really missing this kind of like chess move, which I will be very embarrassed if it turns out that that is not what happened, and it turns out that Davis was just soft as Charmin and couldn't get back there, and, you know, whatever. But that's what I think happened. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think the situation was? Do you think it was a strategic move by the Lakers, or do you think that he's just was hurt and he didn't think he could walk back on his own? Let me know in the comments below what you think. Thank you for watching. I will see you on the next video.